This is TWiT.
Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. Keep your team's IT skills current. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. TWiT listeners will receive at least 20% off or as much as 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. The discount's based on the size of your team when you fill out their form. A court has ruled that YouTube is not under any obligation to carry Dr. Mercola's anti-vaccine videos. Joseph Mercola yesterday lost a lawsuit. He was trying to force YouTube to provide access to videos that were removed after YouTube banned his channels. He is a prominent anti-vaccine guy. Mercola said, "You owe me $75,000 in damages for breaching your user contract and denying me access to my videos." The judge said, "YouTube is under no obligation to host your content." The court found no breach, she wrote, because, quote, "there is no provision on the terms of service that requires YouTube to maintain particular content or be a storage site for users' content." If there's a thread here, it's confusing. That's the thread. I don't know what.
Well, what would be interesting? The way that Florida is going with all of its various interpretations of laws. It would be interesting if it'd be interesting if we have a little bit of this now, but it'd be interesting if different content is shown in different states based on different laws, because it's already kind of started to happen a little bit.
I guess
the
we
way
could
things
do
are
that, right? Technologically.
Can you imagine, I want to watch I'm geofenced out of watching my anti-vax content unless I cross the border into Florida, where I get all I can mainline it.
Didn't that happen with Pornhub?
Pornhub, yeah.
But that was kind of, yeah.
But that was hard. That would have been hard to implement fully, so they just shut it down. I'm talking about, this would be different. This would be YouTube saying, no, we'll take your content, but we can only show it once you cross state lines. I could see that happening. They already do it that way overseas, so
yeah.
That would be so interesting and have such big effects on the creator world.
Well, we talk about the Splinter Net, the idea of having different internets in different jurisdictions. I guess that's where we're headed, right?
Well, what's fascinating to me is when GDPR came out, this speaks to the power of how much money companies are making by tracking you online and knowing everything that you do. You could have seen companies say, well, we're going to make GDPR sort of like least common denominator. We're just going to change our policies so that this is what we do everywhere. But instead they said, we're going to build these complex back-end systems that make sure that we follow the rules of GDPR only in the EU, and everywhere else we're not going to do that. And to have that kind of money to build that and test it and roll it out on a reasonably short timeline too, that really says to me they can't afford to lose, or they don't want to lose any of the money that they're making anywhere else by not following those rules. But because that's what we sort of assumed is California will lead the way in the United States, and then they'll pass laws, and then all the companies will say, well, we'll just follow California's rules and roll it out the same everywhere because that's cheaper and easier to do.
They're saying that that's what the right to repair legislation in California will do, that it'll change it for the whole country because we can't have. But that's a little different. That's a physical process. The internet, you probably could geofence the internet. Right?
It's still expensive, though.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap solution.
Well, you just look at somebody's IP address, match it up to a database of where they are, and say, well, sorry, you're in Florida. You can't see this. Sorry, you're in California.
Well, so this is right. So this is the difference is, are you going to just cut them off wholesale, or are you going to have a very complicated, rule set for what they can and cannot see? So you cut them off wholesale, that's fine.
What if PC Magazine, this is highly hypothetical, but what if for some reason some of your articles were legal in California and some weren't? You would just show the ones that were legal and have a blank hole where the illegal ones are? You could
tell everybody to use a VPN.
Yeah. I think technically it wouldn't be impossible to implement, but it seems like it would be undesirable. On the other hand, it would be
undesirable. I still think it would be very expensive because ideally you would want to make sure that you're following the law as precisely as you can and getting through as much content as you can, right? So I think it would not be so simple as saying yes, no, yes, no.
What's going to happen to TikTok, Taylor? Are they? There's a company that's in the meat grinder with government one way or the other. Donald Trump tried to shut them down. They're using Oracle servers now. They've got a U.S. CEO, but they're still a Chinese-owned company. Like
a lot of apps, it's not even remotely the only Chinese-owned app, and there's so much entanglement between, Chinese interests in American business. It just seems absolutely ridiculous to target TikTok instead of some sort of comprehensive data privacy reform.
Yes,
which we don't have.
Thank you. Yes. Just stop selling to the data brokers. Put the data brokers out of business because, frankly, you shut down TikTok, China just goes to the data brokers and gets the same information from them. They don't need TikTok for that stuff.
But it's just Facebook lobbying. I mean, so much of this anti-TikTok stuff is it's Facebook and Google lobbying.
So I never got an answer. I want to know from all three of you, what social networks are going to survive? What ones are you using? I think we agreed there's not going to be anything that can replace Twitter, right? There's never going to be another Twitter. Or is there?
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be a one-to-one replacement. I wrote actually recently, a couple months ago, about how TikTok had already sort of cleaved off a lot of the core functions of Twitter, especially keeping up with news. I think although TikTok is not real-time news, like the war in Ukraine or, the Maui fires or all these big news events, people go to TikTok because you see real-time footage of people. It's sort of the place that you go for news and information and pop culture news.
My daughter convinced me that she's 31 she said, I've been reading that people use TikTok instead of Google for search. That makes no sense. She said, yeah, it works. Try it. I said, all right, I want to know how long the Golden Gate Bridge is. She said, search on TikTok. I found a TikTok that said how long the Golden Gate Bridge is.
This is part of, I put exactly stuff related to this in my article about how Google search is.
You can actually search. You can get everything from TikTok.
Yeah. And other platforms.
What about YouTube. Threads? What about Blue Sky? What about T2? What about Mastodon?
Is anybody actually on Blue Sky? Didn't it not happen?
Blue Ski.
I'm on it. There's somebody.
Do you even skeet? You were on Blue Sky a lot, I think, originally, Taylor, weren't you? Or were you?
I still am.
You still are, yeah.
I'm a poster. I post everywhere except Twitter for news. I totally stopped it. But I think Blue Sky is, for me, I find it useful as a journalist still for sourcing. There's 10 people on it and it's decreasing every day. It's basically posters and Mastodon. I mean, I'm a Mastodon defender. I mean, I know it doesn't probably never going to be a mainstream social platform, but I do find it useful for certain conversations.
I like the community on it because it's pretty geeky.
Yeah. That's probably why we all use it. I don't know that normal people want to.
I don't know what normal people do ever, to be honest with you. I'm not an expert. Threads for a while was the thing. It went crazy because it was so easy to go over from Instagram. And now I keep seeing stories that the Threads people are disappearing and is it getting quiet?
That's an example of you couldn't post really they really restricted what content could get posted.
Oh, did you run up against barriers?
Huge content moderation problem. This is I said this the minute it launched. If journalists used Instagram more, they would realize how incredibly restrictive the content policies on there. And I get why. I'm not totally against it, but it's a very restrictive platform.
Oh, well, it's Meta. Of course it is.
Yeah, but if they want to have this real-time social network, again, they cannot just wholesale ban the word vaccine. That is the type of blunt moderation that they have. It's really hard to talk about newsworthy issues.
Interesting. And T2 does not do that. But
I haven't used T2 in a while.
T2. Blue Sky. How does it? Can you post anything you want on Blue Sky?
Yeah.
How actively moderated is that? They got in trouble for a while for being a little too friendly to bad people.
They were letting people put slurs in their usernames.
Yeah. That's fixed though, right?
That's fixed.
I think this has all been an attempt to recreate Twitter, and A, there's too many people doing it. And B, maybe we don't need another Twitter. Have we moved on?
I'm a Twitter OG. I was on the platform just after it launched at South by, and it's left a hole. I mean, the whole thing started tanking during the 2016 election. So I think it really hasn't been the same since then. But it was I had all of these lists set up, and what was Nuzzle? I had them all connected.
Nuzzle, Jonathan Abrams,
who's always slightly a little bit too early on just about everything, but it was a wonderful little app. It would scrape and deliver me news content. I mean, it was terrific. Plus, all my friends were there. It hasn't been the same since. Yeah. I don't use Facebook and haven't for a long time. I'll tell you, I have one tiny Keybase group.
You still got the Keybase going. Good for you.
Yep. And then a lot of my the people that I know have switched over to texting.
It's the new social network, SMS.
Texting is the new. Yeah. So a lot of texting now. I've been dragged into WhatsApp. Yeah. It's like I'm all the stuff that used to be sort of public, we're all talking and discovering together, has completely gone private. So all my social groups and social network interactions are totally private now.
That's what's really going on is you're using these, and I see people doing that with Discord. Aunt Pruitt's got a Slack for his whole family. I see people doing that as well. And that's private, so you don't have to worry. But you
no, I still worry.
Yeah. Well, you must have weird friends, but you lose that idea, that feeling that you've got your thumb on the pulse, that you're tuned into the zeitgeist.
Some of that serendipity is gone, right? Yeah. The serendipity and the discoverability is kind of gone, which I do miss.